afternoon and welcome to Metropol Apprise. My name is Ingrid Nantege. Now, a used car, a pre-owned car, or a second-hand car is a vehicle that has previously had one or more retail owners. Used cars are sold through a variety of outlets, including franchise and independent car dealers, rental car companies, leasing offices, auctions, and private party sales. Unlike new cars, used cars come with many advantages. A slightly used car that has under 30,000 miles on it can help you keep cash in your pocket without sacrificing quality. This means they have lower price tags and less depreciation. Useless extras on new cars become cheaper features on used cars. The oldest trick in the dealer's book is that they install additional dealer options that one who buys a new car always does at an additional cost. New cars always smell great. But how much is that centrally worth? By looking beyond the sale price and considering the total cost of buying a new car, you can get a better idea of how much you're really going to pay for the privilege of being the first owner of that car. You can spend a little extra time on research from the initial price to the long-term costs. You'll thank yourself for buying a slightly used car that is in good condition. Now, joining me today to discuss the used car business in the country is Mwangi Gakere from SBT Japan. You're very welcome to the show, Mwangi.
Thank you so much, Ingrid.
Now, when we talk about the used car business in
please.
Kenya,
yes, please.
Just paint a picture for us. How is it a big industry? Are we seeing people delve more into buying used cars, or is it that people prefer to buy those fresh smelling cars because, like, you know?
That's a good question. In Kenya, most of the people buy used cars. Simple reason, they're more affordable, and they're easy to access in terms of even financing are very much available.
Right.
So majority of the people go for used cars.
But what if we talk about the regulation around the industry, even as we see more people obviously prefer to go that way, again, because of course, even I myself would rather, if I'm going to get a good quality car at a better price, I'm going to go for it.
Yes.
But we know the regulation around used cars in Kenya. There's a certain limit, there are certain limitations they put.
Definitely.
When it comes to parts, there are also limitations they put around that. So talk to us about the laws and regulations. Are they very conducive?
Yes, they are conducive. I'd start with things like taxes, right? Kenyans are obliged to pay taxes when you're buying a car. So it depends with the taxes in Kenya are based according to the current retail price of a car. Meaning if you go to Toyota Kenya, for example, how much did you buy a Prado?
Right.
2019, that is. Now from there, they'll be able to tell you how much you're supposed to pay for duty. But from there now you can be able to tell, like, for example, if it's a Vitz, for instance, how much you're supposed to pay, things like that.
Right.
But on the other hand, you're supposed to look at also things like who's not obliged to pay taxes. Very few people in Kenya are qualify in terms of paying for taxes. This includes people like persons with disability, diplomats, and returning residents. And all of them have a criteria which, just to confirm that they fall into that any of those categories.
So when we talk about importation of used cars,
yes,
just like any used product, even when you're buying a used dress, even when you're buying a used car, obviously there's a chance you can get something that's in almost perfect condition. There's a chance you'll get something where you have to do so much work on it. There's a chance where, like, there are really levels. It's not guaranteed just the same way you would buy a brand new car.
Yes.
My question then is, as someone who's considering to buy a used car, what should I think about? What considerations should I put in place prior to going into it?
Well, the first consideration I think many people should think about is the type of car that you're buying. You should know at least basic stuff like fuel, is it petrol, diesel? You should look into also things like the price of the car. The person who's selling to your car should be able to tell you in full how much are you supposed to pay. If, for example, you're buying a car from an importer, how much are you supposed to pay until you get the car physically? Because sometimes you might find people might import, but then when the car reaches the port, maybe like a clearing agent or the agent who's selling you the car will tell you to get some additional funds. So they're supposed to give you like the duration of time, how much you're supposed to pay. If the car takes 6 weeks, for example, if you're importing, why is there any need for an extra number of days? These are things that a person who's selling your car should be able to tell you.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, you should be able to ask the person who's selling you the car
Yes.
all the questions you need to answered ahead of.
Yes,
So
definitely.
in the Kenyan market, there are quite a number of players
Yes.
that are dealing in used cars.
True.
So when going out to shop around to decide on where to go,
Yes.
because then obviously you want to get the best value, so you want to buy from the best person.
Definitely.
So how do you zero in on buying from SBT Japan as opposed to buying from the next vendor or the next supplier?
Basically, you're supposed to look at one of the things that we as SBT look into is the quality of service that are being provided. Is this person giving you enough information to make an informed decision? Even in terms of price, those are things that you should look into. Yes, and also the condition of the car, because these are used cars, and I'll say this a bit bluntly, but used cars don't have warranty, unfortunately.
Right.
Because transferring warranty is quite difficult when it comes to the car business, especially when it comes to from a new user to a used user, to somebody who's buying a used car. So transfer of warranty is not something that you should be very much be aware of. So such kind of things are things you should be able to be explained to by the person who's selling your car.
So when it comes to tastes and preferences, what if I have a because you know different countries, different continents
Yes, true.
have different guidelines. For example, Rwanda will drive on the left, so you know like they'll have left-hand drives. Kenya does it differently. Uganda does it differently. So for example, I'm living in a country like Kenya where we're used to doing it the right way, pun intended, and I'm interested in buying
Yes.
a left-hand drive. How does that then work? Am I even allowed? How do I go about that?
In Kenya, you're not allowed to import a left-hand drive car.
Oh, so it's actually not allowed?
No.
There's a penalty for if you're found on the
You'll
road
not
with a
be
left.
allowed in the first place.
Okay,
It's not allowed.
right.
I've seen some around, but I'm not really sure how that works. Because some of these cars, most of them, actually all of them, are supposed to be on transit. Like if it's Rwanda or South Sudan or any other country that drives on the left side,
Right.
that go past through Port of Mombasa. Yeah.
So Mwangi, let's talk about the limitations. When we talk about a used car, that can mean a car that goes as far back as 1970 something. It can mean a car that goes back as 1980 something. It can mean a car that goes as far back as 1990 something. What are the limitations when it comes to the years or the age of the car that I can actually import into the country in Kenya? And also, how does that affect the pricing, the age of the car and also the pricing?
All right. So when it comes to the age limit, in Kenya, the law is you're not supposed to import a car that's more than 8 years. Meaning that right now, in 2019,
Right.
you can import a car as new as 2019, like a showroom car, to 2012 month of December. So you're not supposed to import a car that's more than 8 years. Simple as that. For other countries, it depends. Some of them don't have even limitations. What was the other question again?
On the aspects of pricing, like for example, if I'm buying a car that's 8 years old,
Yes.
buying a car that's 5 years old,
Yes.
buying a car that's 2 years old,
yes,
is it
yes,
all the same
definitely.
thing or does it differ?
Yeah, basically how I can put it is the newer the car, the more expensive.
Right.
That's the rule. So a 2019 car will be much more expensive as compared to a 2012 car or a 2015 car.
So speaking of costs,
Yes.
importation, bringing in a car, and I'm not just talking about purchasing the car, but I'm
Sure.
talking about importing it, like the costs that go into bringing it into the country,
Mm-hmm.
what are we looking at? Does it make more sense? Because then you can go online. I've seen a situation where you go online and you can get a car. You can see a car that you like that will even be $1,000, $1,200.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you put in the importation costs,
Yes.
it ends up obviously inflating. So talk to us a bit about the importation costs vis-a-vis buying a used car locally.
When you're buying a car, there's some things that, in terms of price, I can break down the price into two. There's a CFR price. CFR is the cost of the car up to Mombasa port.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're paying taxes, you're supposed to pay duty after that, right? And if you're not paying taxes, the only thing that you're going to pay for is clearance and registration.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
But now when it comes to the taxes part, tax depends on the current retail price of the car, as I was saying earlier. So let's pick a common car in Kenya, like Mazda Demio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty common.
Yeah, Uber uses it a lot, especially.
Yeah.
So the cost of buying such a car up to Mombasa would be something like 3,500, depends. So it'll be something like 3,000 or 3,500. Then the duty will be something to do with around 300,000. So that's the importation duty, clearance and registration at the port. So you pay for the 350 first, the car reaches Mombasa, that is if you're doing direct importation. When the car reaches, you pay for duty and clearance and registration at the port. Then the car is cleared, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're buying locally, now here comes two scenarios. It can be either when it was imported, it was used for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
or you go buy a car from the dealer. But then for a dealer, he has to make a markup, something on top, profit basically. So they'll mark up the price a bit so that they can be able to cover some of their costs.
Right.
Now, in terms of that, now it depends on the person you're buying from. Yeah.
So really, it depends. You have to shop around before
You
you
have
make
to
a
shop
decision.
around. You have to make an informed decision because you have to also look at things like even the quality of the car. And just one more thing, if you're buying locally, something that has already been imported, I'd advise if you can be accompanied by a mechanic.
Right, someone who understands.
Somebody understands how a car works and be able to check if there are any defects that will be serious, especially like engine problems. At least if somebody can accompany, you can be able to tell you, give you good advice. This is a good car. Maybe do a test drive for like a few kilometers. Then you'll be comfortable because you're actually spending a lot of money when it comes to maybe buying it for your business or for personal use. Nobody wants to a car stolen in the middle of the road, right?
No, no one wants that.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much for joining us on this episode of Metropol Apprise. You've provided us with very, very valuable information, especially when it comes to used cars, because then now anyone who's trying to purchase a car knows exactly where to go, what to go with,
Yes.
and what to look out for. So
you
we've
so
come
much.
to the end of the show, which is Metropol Apprise. My name is Ingrid Nantege. Don't go anywhere. There's more programming coming your way on Metropol TV.